Alright guys, welcome back to the Backyard Builds YouTube channel. My name is Austin and I'm here to showcase my 1994 Toyota Supra. So let's go ahead and do a quick walk around here of the car. So like I said, this is a 1994 Toyota Supra. It was imported here into the States in 2021 or 2022. I initially purchased the car in 2022 from Spirit of the 90s here in Clearwater, Florida. Starting out, this car was an NA auto. So it had the 2JZ GE non-VVTi engine with the A340 transmission. Since then, I have done a full turbo kit on it, standalone ECU. Currently has a T56 Magnum. Kind of been doing a little bit of work here and there. It has a full manual transmission tunnel welded into it. It has been professionally tuned and it is currently running E85 because here in Florida, E85 is relatively easy to get your hands on. And you know, I haven't had it officially on the dyno yet, but I would wager it makes in the realm of 800 horsepower on full kill, and that is to the rear wheels. It's tuned to make up to 30 pounds, but I also have a BTI gauge in the cab that I can control my boost levels with. So, you know, I kind of have it turned down on 20 pounds because it is a stock motor car, meaning it has a completely stock bottom end, pistons and rods and crankshaft and all of that stuff, but the head is mildly built. It has shimless buckets, 272 camshafts, it's BC springs, nothing crazy, but you know, just a mild street build here. HKS carbon TI exhaust, and yeah, that's pretty much a good walk around of the car. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the hood and show you what's under there. So underneath the hood, just like I was saying, there is the 2JZ GE non-VVTi engine with that built head. And you can see here, I have the Pulsar Borg-Warner S369 dual ball bearing clone. Oh, hang on. Hell yeah. Anyway, so that turbo is a Pulsar Borg-Warner S369 dual ball bearing clone. So this turbo originally in this car was a Borg-Warner S369 SXE, and I started having problems with the oil or the seals in the turbo pushing oil. So to make a long story short, I went ahead and contacted my Pulsar dealer that I have. We went ahead and tried this out. This turbo is exactly the same as a Borg-Warner S369 turbo, except it's ball bearing instead of journal bearing. So in theory, it's more efficient. The compressor housing is different, and the only reason I changed the compressor housing is because the Borg-Warner didn't have a T51R mod. And when I purchased this turbo, I elected to have the T51R mod on this compressor housing to, you know, make the turbo a little bit louder. I can hear it as I'm getting on it. Connected to the head here, I have the Hitachi R35 GTR coils. These are, you know, kind of the go-to coil other than IGN-1A coils in the Supra game. So everybody kind of runs either these or the IGN-1As. Some people say they can get away with, you know, big power on the stock coils. I went ahead and upgraded them just because I didn't want to take any chances with any spark issues or anything like that. Moving on to the intake manifold, I have a SPA turbo intake manifold, and I do have a SPA turbo manifold here, so you can see. It's kind of hard to see right there, but on that runner there, I do have a SPA turbo manifold as well. And honestly, in my opinion, these are great value. So I want to say that the intake and the turbo manifold run you about $1,500 US at this point. I am recording this in November of 2025. So, about $1,500 for an intake and a turbo manifold, I think is a steal. These have been nothing but reliable to me. They work fantastically. I have no problems with it. And connected to that spa manifold, I have the infamous RMR 90mm throttle body there. Going to be swapping this stuff out for drive-by-wire here in the future, as well as I'm going to be swapping in the 8HP 70 transmission into this car as well. So be sure to stay tuned for the content on that. We have a whole video series planned, Mike and I, of going through removing this T56 Magnum, putting in the 8HP 70, and all the little quirks and features that might entail or might be involved with doing those particular swaps. In terms of fuel system, I have a set of 1650 injectors, and in the fuel tank I have one 450 Walbro pump and a 525 for my boost pump. Over here I have an AEM fuel pressure regulator with my fuel pressure sensor and my E85 or my ethanol content sensor right here. Up front here I have a no-name carbon fiber cooling plate. I bought this secondhand off a marketplace. I don't really know who makes it, but typically what people do in the Supra community is they take these plates here and they put them so that way as you're driving, the air rushes through the radiator as opposed to coming up underneath the hood and going over. So that's why I elected to have that. It's nothing crazy, but like I said, a secondhand steal off a Facebook marketplace, so sure, right? Up front here I have the Euro spec front headlights, which means that the lenses are glass. And I pulled these headlights apart and painted the interior to make them look like the Series 2 headlights, because on the Euro spec headlights, they're kind of that polished chrome, and I'm not a big fan of how it looked, especially on silver. So I opened them up by putting them in the oven, pulling the headlights apart and painting the inside of that lens, and I think it came out amazing. Also up front here, I upgraded to the Series 2 turn signals right there. It's kind of backwards. I have Series 1 headlights with Series 2 turn signals, but I think the Series 2 turn signals look so much better than the Series 1. So Mike and I went ahead and installed those as well, just because I like the look so much better than the Series 1. I think it completely transforms the front end of this car. Over in terms of boost control, I have my 3-port boost solenoid there. In terms of my wastegate setup, I am running a tile 44mm wastegate with a 12-pound spring in it. So, they say that would be good for roughly 24. They say 3 ports typically give you double the horsepower, but I'm pushing upwards of almost 30 pounds, probably because of some boost creep, because that is a single 44mm wastegate. So I would wager I'm probably starting to have some creep on this setup. So whenever I do inevitably do a built engine, I already have connecting rods and stuff like that for this car. I'm probably going to be swapping out for some sort of tubular manifold with better wastegate priority, just so I don't have that boost creep problem. I have my blow-off valve right here in my bumper. This is another tile blow-off valve. And then for my intercooler, a Rev 9 eBay 4-inch intercooler. Seems to do the job well. I have no problems. I'm sure I could probably upgrade to a more efficient intercooler, but who wants to do that when the eBay specials are perfect? Moving on to the wheels here, I have a set of Weld Ventura front wheels. These are 18 by, I believe, 8s or maybe 9s. These are the Weld Ventura series wheel, and then in the back I have the Weld S71 set 15 by 10.5 with a 7.5 inch back spacing. And I think this wheel setup, especially on the silver here, is absolutely killer. Silver, in my opinion, is one of the hardest colors to find wheels for. So kind of getting this black wheel with the polished lip, I think looks very, very nice. Especially on this car. Now for the back, I'm eventually going to be getting a set of 17s with a summer tire, because I have noticed, especially when it starts raining, which it basically does every day here in the summer in Florida, that these tires get kind of sketchy. You can see here I have the Mickey Thompson ET Street, and that is a 275/60 R15 tire. So as it starts to rain, especially on like a concrete surface, it gets pretty sketchy pretty quickly. So, you know, maybe we'll be able to input some sort of traction control with the 8 HP whenever I do that swap. But currently with the T56, there's really, it's either making traction or it's not. Hopefully that'll be something that we could fix here soon. In the department of suspension, I am rocking a full set of BC Racing coilovers. You can kind of see they're a little dirty because I basically drive this car everywhere. So I travel for work for a living. So if I'm home, I'm driving my Supra. I absolutely love this car. I don't think I could ever get rid of it. There's not a car that, in my opinion, does what a Supra can do, especially for the price. Yeah, you know, they're saying that these cars are too expensive for what they are, but realistically speaking, Mike and I built this car in a garage on jack stands, right? So that right there speaks volumes. I don't need to have, you know, a $20,000 toolkit to work on this car. In the wheels here, I have a set of LS400 front rotors and pads. These are a direct bolt upgrade. So I had the small NA brakes. They were kind of fading out. So when the time came for it, I went ahead and did the LS400 brake upgrade. It's basically a turbo Supra brake caliper, but for the Lexus LS400. So I think all together I paid $250 those brake rotors. So, or for the whole brake setup rather. So in my opinion, it's hard to beat that cost. And you're gonna hear me say that a lot. I'm one of those guys where if there is a way to do it with the same quality but a little bit cheaper, I'm going to be going that way. The entire wiring harness here was done by Mike. Now I did have some remnants here of an old build. I had somebody else do the build on this car initially because at the time when I purchased this car I was living in an apartment and I really didn't have the space to work on it. So, you know, Mike's kind of had his hands in here. He completely redid my entire harness, and connected to that harness is an ECU master, EMU black ECU. Mike's kind of touched the entire wiring harness. We still have some things left to do, like I mentioned earlier, the drive-by-wire conversion and stuff like that. So we're gonna be making some more content on wiring and stuff like that here in the future. And when we do that 8 HP swap as well, we're gonna have to do a lot of wiring there. So chances are this harness is gonna come out and a few more times at least until it gets to its final iteration. And that covers a pretty good majority of the modifications on this car. Kind of finishing up here, I know I've already mentioned the HKS Carbon TI exhaust here. And one last thing that I did want to point out is that in the differential of this car, I am rocking a TRD 200 millimeter differential. So that is a 1.5 way limited slip differential that does, I would say it's probably one of the best that money can buy for the 200 millimeter small differential. So, you know, it's starting to kind of whine and give me some problems now. Obviously, making 800 horsepower with some big sticky drag radials back there doesn't really help. So I have intentions at some point in the future doing an 8.8 Ford rear end swap. And obviously, like I've said, I'm gonna record that and, you know, upload that content when that time comes. Moving on into the interior here, I wanted to kind of highlight this BTI gauge here. So this BTI gauge is how I control my boost levels. Most other chassis, you kind of tune for one particular power level, or you kind of tune for your ideal boost number and you kind of just leave it there. Whereas with this BTI gauge gives me the capability of doing a whole lot of things, like for example, diagnostics, if I want to check oil temps or intake air temps or anything like that. If I'm a big fan of like Fast and Furious, I could do the R34 style gauge cluster here. Not gauge cluster, but you know, the temperature and stuff like that. And over here, if I keep on moving over, you can see I have like CAN diagnostics, wheel speed, I have mini dash, tire temperature. So I could hook up a bunch of different sensors to my ECU and monitor all of that via CAN with this BTI gauge, so CAN bus. One thing I wanted to point out here is this analog output here. So you can see I'm currently on boost level 8. Like I said, that makes about 20 21 pounds of boost. You know, it does all right. And then all the way up to boost level 10 is full kill, and that makes just shy of 30 pounds of boost. Honestly, I couldn't imagine life without this BTI gauge. I didn't have it for the longest time when I did my initial build, and kind of looking back on it now, I don't know how I ever did it, because I have things like boost freeze frame where I can see how much boost I make during a pull. I can do gear detection, so when I do my 8 HP, I'll be able to have my different gears, and I can see like my boost by gear and all that fun stuff as well. But primarily what I leave it on here is diagnostic. So if I go ahead and click on diagnostic, you can see it has like AFRs, it has like your different correction values, your manifold pressure, so your boost, your voltage of your battery, your water temps, your oil temps, your intake air temps, and so on. I absolutely love this, and I think it is absolutely necessary anytime you do a build like this, at least to this magnitude in one of these cars. You can see up here I have 392,464 kilometers. When I bought this car, it had, I want to say it had just shy of 320,000 kilometers. So I have put a lot of mileage on this car since then. Obviously the car is off, so that check engine light there, don't worry about that. So yeah, like I said, I drive this car absolutely everywhere. I adore this car. I think it's honestly one of the best cars ever built. And y'all are gonna flame me for this, but I have never seen the Fast and Furious, and that's not why I got this car. I originally got this car because my sister had a burgundy Mark III Supra when I was a kid, and ever since then I've absolutely adored the Supra platform. For my steering wheel here, I have a Sparco suede steering wheel on a quick release. I'm not a huge fan of this. I'm probably gonna swap it out here for an OEM style wheel here soon. I'm gonna be swapping this out for a probably an OEM style or some sort of leather wheel. I like the Sparco wheel, but you know, these are meant to be driven with like racing gloves, and I don't drive obviously with racing gloves, so you can see kind of the Alcantara here's a little, it's a little worn, and that's fine. But yeah, like I said, it's on a quick release, so I could pull the wheel off if I need to. Nothing crazy, but yeah. And that kind of wraps up the video or the walk around of the Supra. So appreciate you all watching. Stay tuned for some more content here soon. We're going to be swapping out that T56 Magnum, and then we're going to be swapping in that 8 HP 70, as well as doing the drive-by-wire conversion as well. So thank you for watching. Hope to see you all back soon. Please consider liking, subscribing, and yeah, see you in the next one.